everyone. Welcome to a brand new episode of the Voice India podcast and video series. On today's episode, we are going to demystify a lot of the terminology that you commonly hear within this ecosystem. So even if you're not a techie, you should stay tuned because we have something to offer to you, whether you're a marketer, whether you're a brand custodian, agency person, content creator, or just a consumer who is very curious about what's happening with the voice ecosystem in India. And to guide us through it is our expert, Sriraman Tyagarajan. He's a passionate champion of all things voice, and he also happens to run India's first voice agency, Agraya Technologies. So welcome, Sri. Can you give us a quick recap of what we've discussed in episode 1 and 2 and tell us what you have in store for us today?
Welcome everyone. Priti, in the first episode we saw the rise of voice technology and the future it holds and why it is becoming a choice of interface for Indians using Google Assistant. In the second episode we saw how voice can be used for building for next billion users, or Bharat as we say, and how it can unlock a lot of possibilities. Today we are going to get a primer about all things about voice tech. There's a lot of jargons there, but we will demystify that and help you get started on building your voice presence on Google Assistant.
That's awesome. Can you just start us off with the basics and tell us what does it take to create a voice application?
It's very simple. Just think about your users, see what they might be looking for, and you start the process by creating a user persona and work backward to see where Google Assistant fits in the consumer's journey.
Okay, and if I'm a brand and I want to create my own presence on a voice platform, where do I start?
Right. Priti, let's say you have identified a user persona. You need to build what is called as actions on Google. It's also called AOG. If I were to draw a parallel, think of it like a Facebook page or a website or even a mobile application that brands would have built in the past, right? So you would tell your consumer saying, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. Same way, you would have told them, download our app. Now you simply need to tell them, talk to Google and the brand name. Something like talk to Domino's, talk to Gana Antakshari, so on and so forth. This is the first step in creating the voice presence.
So let's say that I'm a brand manager who's already figured out what my target audience needs and wants, and I'm creating my first action on Google. Do you have any tips for me on how I should go about creating a voice first experience? What are some things I should keep in mind?
You know, in the visual world, GUI world, we have a lot of cues and context to signify or differentiate brand A from brand B. You know, two different banks have two different color combinations. They look different, they feel different in the real world, but in voice they can't sound the same. There is a brand persona for the brand itself, you know, the brand identity or the brand equity. Now, how do you bring that to life in voice assistant is a good question to ask. I would like to illustrate an example with, let's say, a pizza shop and a bank. Does it sound okay to you?
Absolutely, bring it on.
Right. Let's say we are building an action on Google for a pizza shop. It could say something like, hey Sriraman, welcome, what's up? What do you crave today? It can have that fun conversation with me to help me order a pizza. And if I say something like, 2 large pizzas please, it can give me a quirky comment, something like, oh, that must be a house party, or you must be really hungry. But imagine now, let's go to the bank and I say, hey, open my bank account, and it says so. And if I say, what is the balance? And if it says something like 4,000 rupees, and I don't want a comment from the bank saying, hey man, that's a very little money in your account, right? Or let's say it's 4 lakh, I don't want the bank to comment either saying, oh, that's a lot of money. I don't want any of those personality of this bank coming here. I expect it to be a little formal and to the point. So this is the two different personas, right? But built in the same Google action. What we call as temporal setting of consumer. It's don't get confused with the jargon. It simply means who's your user, where are they, what happened just before they're using your AOG or just after using your AOG, and what are they likely to expect when they are using your actions on Google. Now let's say you are building an action on Google for bus tracking or a flight tracking. Now if I say, hey, okay Google, when is my bus, or what is the schedule of my bus, I want the answer at the top to say something like, Sriraman, it is 2 hours and 14 minutes away. This is all I need. Now because I'm packing and I'm already on the move, or I could be really anxious about my journey, I don't want any extra conversations, right? So we put the answer on top, but assistant being assistant, it has to help me further. So it can tell me, Sriraman, your bus is 2 hours and 14 minutes away. Would you like me to help you with something else? So that's how you design a good voice experience.
Okay, so that's a really good way to think about it. Think about your user, think about the moment he is in, think about his context, and cater to him while keeping your brand personality in mind. Following up on that, if I'm a brand manager and I want to integrate voice into my strategic roadmap during the upcoming quarter, what kind of tips do you have for me?
Priti, I would recommend that you start with baby steps, right? Start with what you already have. Let's say you have a website and there's a lot of publicly available information about your business there. First step you could do is create an action on Google and have all the information about your brand or business available in a voice first world. Now this is incredibly easy, and if a consumer is looking forward to knowing about your product, your SKUs, your services, when they are asking Google Assistant, the answers are available to them, right? So this is the first step. We kind of call this as information level or a sprint, right? So where you are able to get information about your brand and business on Google Assistant.
And if I've already started offering a basic suite of services, where do I go from there?
Right. So, the voice assistant have the personality of somebody who wants to help you, right? Hence it's called assistant, rightfully. Now, not many people are going to come and ask very fundamental questions about your business all the time, nor it is a great use case to scale, right? Maybe it's far and few, or at times you help your consumer, but I would really tell you, how can you empower your customer to get the answers they want? Let's say if you're a bank, right? And I need to know a very small info about my account. Hey Google, open my bank and tell me if my check is cleared. This is a very simple information. I don't have to log into the website. I don't have to use an app. I could do it when I'm cooking or I'm doing something else, right? Now this requires some amount of tech integration where securely you can link your account to your bank account, so on and so forth, and the user gets the answer. Hey Sriraman, your check was cleared yesterday at 3:30 p.m.
So that's really great that users can access a service completely independently and so efficiently. But what if I'm a brand who wants to take a more creative approach? Do you have any tips for me on how I can go about creating a memorable voice experience that is fun and creative?
I would love to. In fact, not all the brands out there are very bank or businessy, right? Now, let's say you are a salt brand. You're not going to ask the salt brand about what is the price more than maybe once or twice a year. No matter what is the price of the salt, you will buy it. But imagine if you can give health tips to consumers, if you could create podcast on health. Usually salt is associated, or the iodine in the salt is associated with IQ and smartness. Now, I would be tempted to recommend to the brand that you could build an interactive quiz. Let's say for children, you could target the parent, ask them to nominate their child to play the quiz and win some goodies, right? Now, this is a good example of using voice assistant for engaging with your audience in a very contextually relevant way, right to your brand personality.
Okay, so you've given us a really good set of examples that we can use as inspiration, no matter who we are, whether we are a creative marketer, agency person, or brand manager. There's certainly a lot to learn from the examples that you shared with us. Now, could you tell me a little about the technology piece of it? I'm pretty fascinated by it. How does the bot really understand what we humans are saying?
Voice assistants like Google Assistant has AI in it, right? It understands what you speak and captures the intent behind it. If I were to say something like, it's raining outside, I'm feeling a little cold, I would like to warm myself up, I would like to order a cup of hot chai. Now imagine all the things I said. It's cold, I like to warm up myself, and I like to order a hot chai. The intent here is very simple, that I'd like to order a hot cup of chai, right? Google Assistant understands this intent and recommends me, maybe I could order it through a Swiggy or Zomato or Chai Point.
Okay, so that's amazing. Can you talk a little more about the other features that make voice so seamless and intuitive to use?
In the same conversation of ordering a chai, you could say it differently. You could directly say something like, help me order a cup of tea. Now, there is no chai word in it, right? Or somebody else could say, I need a hot beverage, and Google Assistant might say, would you like to have a cup of chai, right? Now, there are so many ways in which you could arrive at the same intent and that is made possible by two things: ASR, automatic speech recognition, under which there is also natural language processing, where you talk to the voice assistant just like how you talk to a human.
So it's actually the bot that is learning how to mimic humans and learn to understand the way we speak.
That's exactly right. Bots are learning to be more human-like as opposed to humans trying to mimic a bot.
Okay, so could you please introduce somebody who is not from a technology background and tell them more about the terminology that's commonly used in this space?
Right. If you were to build your brand, a website or a brochure, you would start with a logo, and then you would start with an information architecture on how the navigation works, different pages, different layouts. In the voice world, we call it as VUI, or voice user interface. Now this is the map or the schema of how your user experience is built on your actions on Google.
So can you give me an example into how VUI comes into play and how does that help the bot understand the context of the user?
VUI, as it stands for voice user interface, now it's up to the developer or the agency to map out the context in which somebody is using your assistant. We are talking about ordering a chai, right? Now imagine if I say, okay Google, 40 times. Now in mathematics, 40 times is a multiple, but in food ordering, 40 times means recommend me something for tea times, right? Some snack. But wait, if you are in a sports environment, for tea times, like golfing, they say tea, right? Now the same phrase 40 times means three different things, and this is context for you, and mapping this out and coding it in is part of the VUI process.
But I have a follow-up question. With so much happening behind the scenes, should I be at all worried about the privacy of my data or the privacy of the information that is exchanged during these interactions?
Preeti, Google Assistant comes to life when you say the wake word, something like okay Google, and then after that what you say, it's called as speech to text and text to speech, vice versa. It only takes the intent of what you asked, it goes to the cloud, and it hands it off to the action some developer has built, gets the information and gives you the answer. Now this is not much different from using your banking app on your phone. Now nobody else is looking at your banking information other than the bank and you, right? So it's something similar. The privacy is taken care of, and also the user is at control here. You could see all the conversations that happened on your assistant. You could delete it, you could edit it, you could handle all of it. So do not worry about privacy, it's been taken care of.
Okay, so that's really good to know and it's very reassuring. But Sri, can you give me a little bit of an insight into how it works? Google sometimes fetches the answer that I want from the web, and sometimes it fetches the information that I need from a third party. So what's really happening here?
It's very, very simple, Preeti. There is something called 1P, first party experiences, and 3P, third party experiences. Now 1P is what Google itself has built. When you see make Google do it, there's a lot of Google services available to you on Google Assistant. Let's say you ask directions, hey, how far is Jaipur from Mumbai? It's going to give you the information from Google Maps. Now this is first party because it's coming from Google Maps. But if I say order chai, Google is not serving chai yet, so it's going to recommend me Swiggy or Chai Point. So it's as simple as that.
So that explains a lot. When a developer builds an action on Google, that would be third party, correct?
When a brand or a developer builds an action on Google, it is a third party, but there's a lot of way to integrate it. There is app actions. Let's say you say, okay Google, help me order food. Now, if you have a Swiggy app on your phone and they have used app actions, the Google Assistant is gonna open Swiggy and ready to take your order.
Thank you so much. This has been an incredibly illuminating and fairly jargon-free conversation, which is always good because it helps more people participate and become part of this community that we're trying to build.
Ecosystem is the word here. If you're a developer, agency, marketer, content creator, please join us on Voice Talks India. The link is in the description. There's a lot happening there. It is open and free forum for you. Thank you so much.
And this is me, Preeti Prakash, signing off. Thank you so much for being a part of another edition of Voice India. Make sure that you keep checking in for more podcasts and videos coming your way in the near future. Bye-bye.